A very warm welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Vic, I'm a painter, and this is a painting that I did back in 1995. So if you watched the previous video, you'll kind of realise this is just a follow-on really. So back in the mid-90s, I was doing a lot of larger scale paintings like this in watercolour. Now, watercolour, as I said before, is quite unusual for this kind of style and also scale of painting, because watercolour tends to lend itself to kind of more translucent colours, like up in this area here, but it doesn't tend to lend itself very well to kind of blocky, thick, permanent colours. So as I said before, most of these colours, especially the kind of the main features here, they will have been painted over at least 3 times to get a nice kind of really clear, thick, bold, colourful, intense effect. Now this painting here kind of is an interesting one actually, because I guess if you look at most artists, if you kind of follow artists back through their career, you'll see kind of traits from one painting to the next if you follow them as they kind of progress, especially kind of historically as well. And it might be perhaps an area they lived or a period they've gone through, something like that. And a painting usually kind of is quite a good telltale sign as to what's going on in their brain, also the style, and it's how they're kind of an evolution of the painter really, how they're kind of progressing and actually kind of nurturing their craft. And this is quite a good example of this really, because I was starting to kind of blend colours, as you can see in these bits here, and as usual I will put some stills up of what I'm talking about. So this area here, the blue to the light blue, the deep red to the light, and different kind of areas of contrast, also with the sky, this kind of sky background as well. This is something I went on to do quite a lot, and it gave it quite a nice airy feeling to it, because what I don't like with abstract, and I don't know if you can really call this abstract to be honest, but what I don't like with a lot of abstract painting is they're really kind of intense. They haven't got any depth to them. You're just kind of stuck looking at this kind of 2D image, and there's nothing else for the viewer to actually kind of get lost in. And one thing I like to kind of incorporate into my paintings is different aspects to the painting. So you're not just stuck with a central kind of feature or design. So if something isn't to your taste, you can let the eye wander, you can look around the painting, perhaps that might catch your eye, or that might catch your eye. There's something for the viewer to look at. You're not stuck looking at the same old thing. So it just offers a bit of variety. And this is a good example really. So this kind of gives the impression that all these kind of images here are kind of in the foreground. In the background, you've got the sky. I think I actually called something like The Sky Behind as a title, something like that. But you'll see elements of other paintings, like this triangular bit here. I did feature this in another painting I did. I kind of elaborated upon the design, made it a bit more complex, layer on layer on layer. We're kind of twisting the triangles with different colours on each layer, so it kind of built up lots of layers. This area here, again, I used a very similar design in just a sole piece on its own, and it worked really, really well. So I thought I'd make that as the central piece. I did alter it slightly, but there's this alternating kind of colour checkerboard kind of thing, just to kind of draw the viewer into the centre. So I often think if you can get the viewer to look at the centre of the painting, then the eye will naturally kind of wander around the edge of it given time. Whether it's the right thing to do or not, I don't know, but hopefully it kind of works. Other elements of this are the spiral down here. Actually, I'll put a still of that, but I will just zoom you into this as I'm standing here. I don't actually know how I did that, to be honest, because that is one spiral. I don't think I could probably do it these days. I actually don't know how I did that, but I would have done it freehand, so I'm not too sure, but I managed to do it. And again, with the bit kind of up here, if I can get that in shot, the kind of square thing going bigger and bigger. And you can see there's quite a lot of detail, even though something might look quite plain when you first look at it. Once you get closer up, you can see there is more to it than kind of meets the eye. You can see that the dots around here, and that little lines kind of making that look like almost like concrete slabs. And I don't know if I'm going to pick that up, but you can see the dots kind of here as well, going around the design, and again dots here. And that's something I kind of use quite a lot in my work, in that I kind of use dots as just kind of break up the design a little bit, just make it a little bit more interesting. And I've also linked this parts of this painting together. So if we look down here again, I'll put a still up of this. You can see I've used these almost like well, they rings kind of, I suppose you say, almost like binder rings to capture one part of the painting and bring it in and connect it to the next. And I've done the same thing like here. I've actually layered through this particular part, let it run through these squares, so it actually kind of penetrates and pierces it and comes out the other side. Again, it gives it more of a 3D feel. So yes, I did this, say 1995. Now this is, as I said, with watercolour. Now watercolour isn't naturally used for things like this. Watercolour will be used for traditionally scenes, still life. I mean, watercolour is a very basic paint. If you're going to start painting, watercolour is the first thing you're probably going to start with. And the difference between watercolour and acrylic, which is what I mostly use now, watercolour is it's quite forgiving. It's very easy to mix. More importantly, it's probably down the cheaper end of the scale as well. The downside to it is you've not got the permanency as you would have with the acrylic. So something like this, God forbid it ever got water on it, it is going to dilute the paint again and the whole thing will just run. So as you can see, that they don't, generally speaking, watercolours are more delicate, and unless you look after them, they don't do the test of time very well. And the same thing goes for the paper. Luckily, when I did this, I was just starting to research about paints and paper, and I actually used an acid-free paper, and that's really important, because if you don't use acid-free paper, over time you are going to get these kind of brown marks that come through, and often you'll see things like that. If you ever watch like the BBC Antiques Roadshow, people bring documents and books and letters and things in, perhaps for experts to look at, very old ones, and they have quite bad stains on them. And there'll be acid stains. And a lot of those stains will actually come from fingerprints, because just the nature of like sweat basically is quite acidic. So what will happen is if you did touch this, or if you touched paper, just general paper, over time that will mark. Even if you don't see it at the time, it will mark. So when you use acid-free paper, it doesn't actually take on that acid. Don't ask me like the chemicals and how it actually works, but it doesn't take on the acid effect. So it does stay quite nice and pristine, thank goodness. Back in the day when I actually chose a paper, I chose acid-free, and that's why this painting still looks probably as pristine as it does now as it did in 1995. So something like this would have taken me a couple of months to do, and I would have done it over it's like a long period, but I was working at the time, so I was working in an office by day, painting at night. So this was kind of my evening job, if you like. And I did about, I'm going to say about 12 big watercolours, and I've explained why I don't do them in the previous video, why I don't do them anymore. But these watercolours are quite rare for me, and they do form part of my personal archive. I might show them one day, purely just a selection of watercolours, so people can see what I used to do on a larger scale. Hopefully, fingers crossed, people might be interested in them. I have had them on show maybe once. I haven't been on show since the mid-90s. This was on show probably about in 97, 98, I'm going to say perhaps. But they've not been on show since. So they do form part of my own personal archive. Probably something I wouldn't get rid of, actually, because I can't ever paint anything like this again. And I was quite proud of these at the time. So there we go. So this is a painting from 1995, a large watercolour. So I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at that. As I said, I'll put some stills up as I went through this video for you to take a look at, and I'll put details about the size and the paint and such like, so you can get a grip on what I'm actually talking about. So thanks a lot for your time on that one. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've liked this video, please have a flashback through some of the other videos. There's a lot on the channel. And if you like it, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, doesn't cost anything. Feel free to share anything you see, any images. I'm not precious about anything, as long as you credit me with my name, that's absolutely fine. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one. You take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. Take care then. Bye bye.